All right, this is one of my favorite parts because I'm talking to Canada again, which I love. So, Kamal, welcome to the Leaders Who Care series, eh?
Thank you.
Um, so I'm in Los Angeles. You're in Toronto. I had the pleasure, privilege of meeting you in person recently, and after everything I heard, I was clear that you needed to be on this series to show people you really are a leader who cares, and what you're doing is right around that. So, best place to start, if you can briefly introduce yourself, and I usually have to put an asterisk on this for men because men generally tell me what they do right away as to when they start introducing themselves, but that's not really the question. The question is, can you tell me like where you're from originally, where you are now? Things you feel maybe comfortable talking about your family, you have kids, things of that nature, maybe something you've never told anybody in the world that you want to reveal it now. That's always fun. Not required, but always fun. But tell us a little bit about you.
Sure. Uh, I grew up in a very happy, loving family, and I think it's colored my outlook to the world a little bit. And my my great grandfather was a Scottish Presbyterian minister. And the morals that have stuck with that all the way down through the family. So it's just a very simple life. There's a right way to live and a wrong way to live, and everyone loves you, and you love humanity, and it's so that was sort of what I was raised in. I was fairly lucky with that. And
Did he wear a kilt?
I do have the Anderson tartan blanket over there, but no, I don't wear a kilt at the moment.
Never?
I never got one made. That was one of the things I thought would be fun to do.
Yeah.
But
Not when it's windy, though.
yeah, well, it'd be fun to experience. But anyway, so that was the early background. Of course, yeah, professional engineer, MBA, entrepreneurship. I've done a lot of traveling. The quote about parents, I think, is the best parents give you both roots and wings. And my mom still lives in the same house she moved into when I was 6 months old. And I have traveled to over 100 countries around the world. So it's
Wow.
yeah, no, I definitely enjoy, but I've got that sense of sort of I come from a place, but I'm also very globally minded and sort of very much want to be out there and part of things. And that's, I guess, seeing the rest of the world tends to inform a little bit your points of view and how you think about humanity as one big humanity rather than a series of little closed off groups. Of course, I studied at INSEAD, which is also a global business school, and it's again it teaches you to see humanity as one humanity than as a bunch of closed competing groups. So, yeah, I
I,
don't know if anything else is useful in background.
yeah, well, I'm trying to remember. You have kids.
Oh, sorry, no, we have no kids. My
Oh, you
wife
don't
and
have any
I.
kids.
So
Okay,
I'm
great.
married, been married for 20 odd years. We actually tried to have kids for a number of years, never worked out, and now we're at an age the kids are too much effort to be worth it.
There you go. And it's interesting because what you're right about international is it's an education beyond belief. And somehow or other, I always thought it should be embedded as an investment into all kids to get at some point to get a chance to see something. Sometimes it happens during sports where you have exchanges and whatnot. But and even in my business with search and talent, even if it's a position that's totally domestic, I still favor a person that's got international experience because, as you know, I'm talking to the preacher to the choir here. They've got a perspective that's different. They've got an openness that's different. They've got, just an instinct that's different because they've worked with so many different cultures. So I'm sure you found the same thing.
Yeah, no, it's interesting actually. My mom, I have to thank my mom for this because I did a French exchange to Switzerland
Mm,
for a couple of months when I was 16, which was sort of the first step. And my mom actually, Canada is a bilingual country. Many people in Canada are not that functionally bilingual, and she
right.
said, we're a bilingual country. You need to go into French immersion. And the local school didn't have French immersion.
Huh.
So she ran around and she got a whole bunch of parents. She basically, old days phone book, calling up people blind on the phone, telemarketer, trying to get them to sign their kids up to go to French immersion so that there was enough groundswell that the local
That's
education would
awesome.
offer the program. So, yeah.
Mom makes
And I think
things
languages
happen.
help.
Mom
Yeah,
makes things happen. That's pretty good.
absolutely.
Even from the same house, she makes things happen. I love that. I mean, it's so you learn so much about culture and everything,
Yeah.
by doing that. Pretty cool. So, Well, what were you like as a kid or a teenager? Were you like being the business unit? Were you like Michael J. Fox on Family Ties, that kid that was always into business, or were you sports or tech or what?
I was your classic geek. I've had glasses since I was 5 years old. So, and I don't know if that comes with the territory, but I was generally the top of my class. So I was the annoying kid who would stick his hand up and try to correct the teacher. And I was someone who I wasn't really part of any clique, but I was sort of peripheral to all the cliques. Somehow when I was in high school, it was like I could sit with the jocks, I could sit with the nerds, I could sit with anybody. But I didn't really have my one group. I was just loosely associated with everyone.
Hey, you probably got more out of it than the ones that were sitting in just in one group, I would say. You mentioned education before. You got your bachelor's engineering physics
Yep.
at Queens, one of my favorite, most beautiful campuses like ever. I
Oh, it's
think.
lovely.
And yeah, it's beautiful. And what were you envisioning at the time?
Oh, I wanted to now I'm just trying to put myself back to then. Actually, uh so when I went to university, I wanted to study astrophysics and do a PhD and study about the stars. And my dad, who also also studied physics, he said, "Do engineering physics, and then if you change your mind about the grad work, then you'll be okay." And in my third year, I ended up working at a laser physics lab for the summer at University of Toronto, and I learned very much about what's involved in being a PhD, and doing a PhD is all about specializing. I was working for a bunch of PhDs, and I'm a generalist. I don't like to specialize. I don't want to spend 3 years of my life. They were looking at sort of laser resonance on a single area of a spectrum from a single molecule. And I'm like,
A little too
no,
specific for you.
there's more to life than this. So yeah, so I guess I changed as I went through, and I was lucky. I spent a summer working at IMAX, movie people, and I just wanted a job close to home. And I looked at the companies close to home, and it's like, oh, IMAX, I've heard of them. Oh, they're just walking distance from my house, little industrial park. Let me walk down there. And they said, well, we've never hired a summer student before. Sure, why not? And I loved the work. And so when I graduated, I just kept working as an engineer for IMAX.
Well, and from what I understand, that's where you really started to appreciate what startups were about. And apparently, and is that what led you to INSEAD over in France?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I didn't even know at the time because it's like my first real. I worked at Exxon before, but this is like my first real job.
Hmm.
And so yeah, you just learn, and it was fun. It was an amazing place to work, and you got 150 people in the company, and everybody knows everyone. We all know the founders, and you head out for drinks, all the rest of that. But I ended up loved the engineering, but I wanted to get more involved in the business type decisions because there were things we could do on the engineering side that would make a big difference one way or the other in the theaters. And the team at IMAX were just basically, oh, you're an engineer, sit in a corner, don't talk to us about business. You know nothing about business. So, and I tried to transfer the marketing department. They were like, no, we don't need an engineer here. So I was like, okay, well, so I know nothing about business. I guess I better do an MBA to learn about business. So it was very shallow thinking when I went to do it. It was just like, yeah, I feel blocked, so therefore I'll do this.
Yeah, but I noticed when my kids were looking at colleges and stuff, they how some of the really smart ones, had the engineering students get together with the finance students and start businesses. Made total sense to do
Yeah,
that.
no,
But
for sure.
you got both educations. That's even more sense. Were there any inflection points at IMAX that were impactful towards the continuing of your career, where you went towards Bain, where you were doing entrepreneurship and investment? Anything that really hit home?
So I would say INSEAD really was an inflection year. And it's hard to explain just how special a place that is
Hmm.
because you have bright people from all over the world. I mean, the admissions department does a really interesting thing. So, for instance, in my class, there was a guy who was a professional tennis umpire who was like Grand Slam tournaments, and he's the guy up in the chair. And then he's one of the members. So you get a really interesting mix of people there. But INSEAD just opened my eyes to a lot of things. I mean, I went in expecting to learn about business, and I learned about myself. And a lot of it is sort of group work situations they put you in, and yeah, it was really so being an entrepreneur before INSEAD, I would never have dreamed of being an entrepreneur. My ambition going into INSEAD was, oh, okay, I'll come back and I'll go back to IMAX and I'll be the VP of engineering and the R&D and engineering. That was my ambition. And it just really opened up because you're sitting here and there was a guy I was in group with who was this Lithuanian guy. So he's a Belgian guy who, when the USSR fell, his dad said to him, hey guys, there's opportunity there. Go check it out. The three brothers moved to Lithuania. They started off setting up a travel publishing book, and then they started buying truckloads of fresh fruits and veggies in Netherlands and Germany and France, and they drove them by truck across Poland. This is back in the late 80s, early
Wow.
90s, and sold the stuff out of the back of a truck in Lithuania. And fast forward, they ended up building the second largest grocery chain in the country. And but it's people like that, and I'm working in a group with a guy like that, and he's like, he's not that he's created the second largest grocery chain. He's not that special. If he can do that, I can do that. And that was really big for me in terms of just opening up my horizons.
That's brilliant. It's the infamous, you found the pain and now he's got the solution,
Yeah, absolutely.
the basic principle. Um,
Yeah.
so, yeah, I know that is a special place to learn. There's no doubt about it, which is why a lot of great people come out of there. Um, and then you had Bain again, like you said, that which was
Yeah.
entrepreneurship and investment. Specifically, you got experience with micro and angel investing, correct?
Yeah. So in Bain and Company, I loved Bain. I loved the work. The mentally stimulating. The team in Bain was just incredible people to work with and be with. The big challenge was our clients were large companies, and I just get very frustrated by large companies. I've got this idealist streak to me, which is I want to see the world be a better place and everyone do what's best for everyone. And
It's
in
a good
large
streak, by the
companies,
way. Don't get rid of it.
I don't intend to. I'm a little older. My wife is Eastern European, and she looks at this naivete in me, and she's like, "Come on."
Yeah, but she loves it
But
though.
she seems to love me. Yes, absolutely. But what I realized is big companies, it's often not about what's right for the company. It's what's right for the individual can often be in conflict with what's right for the company. And my best clients, the clients I love the most, were the small subdivision and distribution of lumber for a massive lumber company. That's where I really felt at home. So I realized that, look, I don't belong in this world of big business. I belong in the world of entrepreneurship. Now, to your question about microfinance, the last case I did at Bain is I worked on a pro bono case for a group called SETI in Canada. And this was an amazing program, ran for about 20 years, whereby if you were on unemployment insurance, the government would give you you applied to a program, and if accepted, the government gave you free entrepreneurship training for 3 to start your business on.
Mhm.
And they had something like 97% of people who did that program never went back on unemployment benefits ever again. So it was a really amazing program to run. And they were saying, hey, we've got these great people coming in, but we want to keep our stats up. So if the company needs funding, if they don't have the savings themselves to fund their own company, we just say no to the business. And so we were looking at how do you launch a micro investing program. So it started off as like a micro credit program. The problem is if you start looking at microcredit, I mean, microcredit is about taking a loan, a low risk type of finance to do something very risky, starting a business. And it works fine when you are sort of buying sewing machines and selling clothes, or buying cows and selling milk or cheese. But
Right.
it really is tough when you're doing anything innovative. So that quickly led me into micro investing. And I went to the world's first microcredit summit in Washington. There was a lot of things that came out of there that was like, hey, here is, I just got really fascinated by that subject of the microcredit, micro investing.
Well, there's so many great stories that started with micro investing all over the world that are actually incredible, where some companies would never have made it. Can you share the importance, of the knowledge and equally the relationships you gained from director roles that you've had,
Sure.
and then we'll start with that, and then leading growth companies you ended up working with, also Sky Meter and InkMind, I
Yeah.
think it was called.
Yeah.
But all those roles, how did it impact you?
When I left Bain, yeah, I had this interest in microfinance, but I was really passionate about actually education in the developing world. Because that's one of the things I'd learned. You go to, spent time in Kenya. I still remember talking to this guy, and he was a high school teacher, and he had grade 9 education, and he was teaching, I think, grade 7, 8, 9, or something. I mean, it was just, and I realized that, look, I studied engineering. There's some basic things in engineering like heat transfer, which really matter when you think about it's dumb little things like how much faster a pot of water boils when the lid is on versus the lid being off, how soil is made up, and they're burning all of the crops on the field rather than plowing the crops, the sort of the waste crops into the soil, not understanding how soil is made up. So I was thinking, great, science education, build visual science education materials to sell in the developing world. So that was my plan. I was going to do that. And
Mhm.
then I went to Lithuania, visited this classmate of mine. I've done a lot of traveling, as you've heard, and I picked up his travel guidebook, the little side business he started. And I thought, wow, this is an amazing business. And all my plans to be an education micro entrepreneur disappeared out the window because it's like, hey, here's this travel thing. Why don't I do this? And I'd been working away for about like 6 months and struggling to get things going, et cetera. I was like, wow, this is it. And I ended up taking over that business. But just, yeah, a series of entrepreneurial things there. But what was really interesting was the learning what it means to be an entrepreneur just makes me that much better of an investor. It makes when you're talking to other entrepreneurs, having lived what they live just makes you that much more useful to them and that much easier to relate to. And I guess that's the big thing for my job today was this entrepreneurial experience. And look, when I was young and foolish, I wanted to do it all myself.
Of course.
And as you get older and grayer, you start to be less excited about doing it all yourself, and you
That
want to
too.
sort of support other people in getting it done rather than doing it.
Yeah, and there's a lot of leadership quality changes that are happening right now. We'll get into it in a little bit, but where leaders don't have to pretend to know everything anymore
Yeah,
necessarily, and that vulnerability can go a long way in trust and in developing other leaders, and not be stressed out of your mind at the same time trying to pretend to do that. Good segue there. You talked about it helps you as an investor share the vision, the mission, and the culture at Loyal VC.
sure. So Loyal is, we do venture investing very differently. The quote I love is that there was a woman we've invested in who I were sitting down chatting a year or two ago, and she said, Kamal, I would never take money from a venture capitalist. And I sort of, we are invested in you. And she said, oh, you don't count, Kamal. You're not a VC. But
You're a
it's this
loyal
really,
VC.
we are. And it's funny, I often ask people, have you ever met a loyal venture capitalist? Ha, ha, ha. But I mean, talk to it. The best way to check things is loyal VC is all about earning the loyalty of the entrepreneurs. Because in entrepreneurship, there's this really funny dynamic, which is nobody wants to fund you, nobody wants to fund you, nobody wants to fund you. And then you hit this inflection point and all of a sudden everybody loves you and everybody wants to fund you, and it turns from entrepreneurs being desperate for money to money being thrown at them and they're busy sort of picking and choosing whose money they want. And our goal at Loyal VC is to earn the loyalty of the entrepreneur so that when they get to pick and choose their investors, when they're doing well and everyone wants to fund them, including us, that they will take our money. And we started this business off saying, look, I mean, everyone tells you when it comes to money, people are sort of very rent seeking. Oh, Kamal, you're naive. when money's on offer, they'll just take money from anyone. They won't take it they won't be loyal. And we guessed maybe 60% of the time. Our loyalty rate so far, 98%.
Mhm.
As in, when we make an offer, the entrepreneur finds room for it somehow. And sometimes we're the only money in town. So, of course, they take our money. But sometimes it's like they are reopening a closed, oversubscribed round to make room for our money. So, but that's all about earning. My partner Michael likes to talk a lot about this. Is that's what we do when we invest small amounts of money to start in the company. We get to know them, they get to know us. We get to do diligence over months to years to really understand the company before putting real money to work. But
Mhm.
as he likes to say, it's about earning. We are there to earn their loyalty.
Yeah, just to interrupt for a minute, because when you first explained that to me, I loved it. And part of the reason is it just made sense to me. I know great coaches, great bosses, they know how to get loyalty, they know how to get best performance by earning the trust and being kind and caring about their players or their employees or whatever. And people are craving that type of relationship. In this world right now, people are craving that type of relationship.
Yeah,
Entrepreneurs, so many have told me that's where we got this expression about giving the baby to the babysitter for the first time and hope they don't drop them. We get that a lot when we're putting a president in to grow a company for the founder, and you've got to have a good, loyal relationship there. However, we also help them brand themselves where, and I've done this with PE firms before, where they're in competition to buy company ABC, and the structures might be a little bit different here or there, the prices might be a little bit different, but at the end of the day, who loves me more type of thing.
yeah,
Not to sound ideological with you, but I'm with you on that, where it's their, especially if they really have the emotional attachment, it's their baby. Of who do they give their baby to? And that might be the differentiating factor for whose money they take. And so when you told me that, I loved it because I know it really is a craving for them to be able to work with someone, not only in the investment, but not just invest it and put it on a shelf to get rid of it either, but to
yeah,
actually believe in it is important. Tell me about the uniqueness you have of you don't take pitches.
yeah. Well, having spent 20 years as an entrepreneur, including a big accelerator here in Toronto called Mars, where there's all sorts of entrepreneurs going around, I have seen so many dumb decisions made in pitches. And it isn't just, okay, so I'll take my case out of it, but I look at the entrepreneurs around me and who people are choosing to fund and who they're not. And it just doesn't make a lot of sense. Actually, the classic one I still remember is I was in Silicon Valley down at this plug and play and doing a pitch competition. And the guy who pitched before us had two drumsticks with which you could play air drums. And if you pointed it at one way, you got one sound, another way, you got another sound. Really cool technology, really fun. But the thing is, we were sitting there about sort of a world transforming technology, which was going to reduce emissions from transportation, carbon emissions from transportation globally by 10%. And they were all excited by him rather than us. And okay, that was a personal story, but I just realized pitches. In fact, there's a gender thing to this also, which is pitches reward. It's an exercise in bragging about yourself and making promises about what you'll do in the future.
Right.
And when it comes to bragging and making promises, there are certain personalities that are better at it than others. And
Mhm.
there is also a gender bias in those personalities that the
100%
braggers
agree.
and the promisers get the money. And because that's what it is, it's an exercise in who can brag the best and who can promise the most.
Yeah.
So we just don't think you should be funding people based on bragging and promising. And it's actually interesting. There's
Why
a
not? We do that for politics.
Uh, I am not going to, since I am going to be entering your country in a couple of days, I will not comment on that subject.
Good point.
but but it is so we really think that you should be judging people based on what they do. And the other thing we do is we do reference checks, because when you talk to a referee, then it also takes the gender bias out of it, because if you ask a woman about herself, she might have some natural modesty about describing her own skills.
Right.
But if you ask her to just describe a friend, she will be delighted to tell you how the friend walks on water. And that sort of, we fund, it's something like 10 times more women than the industry average. But it's why, I mean, that sounds ridiculous, except for the fact that only 3% of VC dollars go to a company with a woman CEO.
Right.
So funding 10 times more is actually only 30%, which is not necessarily that special, but it's
Special.
just a simple change, which is to say, we know, and there's good studies on this. If a pitch is done, pitches are, whether you're a man or a woman, when you listen to a pitch, you will score the same pitch done by a good looking man. Talking about politicians, taller politicians, for instance, are more likely. So it's a good looking man always outperforms an average looking man who all outperform all women. So if you know that, if you know that a pitch is a process which is biased by gender and looks, well, I don't want to fund the best looking male entrepreneurs. I want to fund the best entrepreneurs. So let's use a process that gets us the best entrepreneurs, period, full stop.
Yeah, I agree. I've seen that in sports very often too, about picking the players to be on a team type of deal, and some things. It's a really quick story. I once did a showcase alongside a whole actually Leaders Who Care global conference, and there was a bunch of tech companies showing their stuff, and there was one guy that had this technology that had to best open up a coconut, and his had the longest lineup. To your point about which one got noticed, you got, his his guy had the longest lineup from all the other tech, and his was just opening up a coconut. It was
Yeah.
hilarious. So I get it. You say, well, first of all, I was going to say, they say the fourth industrial revolution is about AI and technology very clearly. AI is going crazy, but they say also the fifth is about humanity. And I noticed a quote, I can't remember where I got it from, but you said, maybe you didn't, or company said it is challenging innovating in an industry that has not fundamentally changed since it was applied in the whaling industry.
Yeah.
And the 1,000 entrepreneurs, investors, and advisors who share our vision and form our community make it all worthwhile.
Yeah.
Can you
No,
describe that?
absolutely. Yeah, it's interesting, by the way. We have money. So Michael and I, there's everything we wanted to do for entrepreneurs. But Michael and I are also experienced angel investors. And we actually set out to build the fund that we would want to invest our own money in. And it's interesting, if you look out there, all of the venture funds out there are designed for institutions like pension plans, like endowments to invest in. They're not designed for normal people to invest in. So we've been running we're in our 8th year of operation now. We have 250 investors. We do not have a single institution who's invested. It's all individuals, because one of the things we did is really simple, is we are an evergreen fund, which is quarterly semi-liquid. That means there's a price every quarter and you can buy or sell, and it's semi-liquid. There's gates. If too many people try to sell, not everyone will get all their money out all at once.
Right.
But it is really, it's such a simple thing, but it's changes like this which are needed to make venture capital accessible for normal people to invest in. And it's funny, we are in the midst of a revolution today whereby in private equity, which is the sort of the elder brother of venture capital, private equity funds are all launching evergreen quarterly semi-liquid funds with $25,000 minimums, because they've realized how much money normal everyday people have. Individuals have as much money as institutions do. So they are busy launching all of this, but people aren't doing it yet in venture capital. So yeah, that's one of the things, which is just the sort of build the fund you want to take money from, build the fund you want to invest in. And yeah, I mean, look, it has been really interesting conversations where people say, I've sat down with some of the top institutions in the world who say, you've got a really interesting way of investing. This small amount of money, get to know the company, do due diligence over time from the inside, deploy more money in the past. That's common sense. That we're sure that'll make money. And then they say, but you're an evergreen fund. And by the way, the other thing is for entrepreneurs, this is one of the reasons that woman mentioned, I like you, you're not a VC, is a venture capitalist invests out of a closed-end fund, which they have to shut down 8 or 10 years after it's launched.
Right.
And they go to entrepreneurs. And I've lived this where the VC comes to us and says, okay, Kamal, we're shutting down our fund now. We want you to sell. And I'm like, well, hold on. The business isn't ready to sell. No, 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 no. We have to sell. We have to sell. And it's like, so that's another thing, which I mean, but these are
Yeah.
simple changes, but they change, they take the venture capitalist from being someone who's trying to pump money in quickly to grow a company quickly to kick it out the door and sell and take the money and run to a long-term partner for an entrepreneur. And entrepreneurs love that, as you might expect. But it's
Sure.
also just a much nicer way to live your day-to-day job.
Yeah, I mean, 100% the last comment. It's a lot less stressful. I mean, you know you have a real partner and all that, and that's why I love the name too. So, it's fantastic, and it really. I've worked with a lot of VCs and PEs firms, but yours is unique in a great way. So, congrats on all that. And I got one more question. I probably have a
Sure.
lot more, but in LA, we say keep them wanting more so we can do a sequel. So we may have to work that out. But I had a client tell me in 2021, he said, the year 2020 was the year that flew by slowly. And I thought, what
Yes.
a great comment. And even now, people feel like COVID was yesterday and years ago at the same time. Um,
Yes.
Now we're at the end of 2025. Who would have thought? I mean, it feels like the millennium was just happening and they were worried about being taken over by something back then. What are you most grateful for and what are you most hopeful for?
It's funny, by the way, you mentioned COVID, and I just got my COVID booster, and I have to say that's one thing I'm grateful for. But it's I could probably think of something. So, what am I most grateful for, and what am I most hopeful for? Um, there's this little experiment going on, which fascinates me, and AI is amazing. It's going to make a lot of our jobs easier. It's also going to destroy a lot of jobs.
Hmm.
And we are going to end up very much in a have and have not world unless something is done to rebalance that. And the experiment I love, and I've seen this happen in a few different places in Canada and Finland and elsewhere, is they're doing experiments right now with a universal basic income,
Yeah, we're
which
talking
is
to a lot of executives about it right now. I'm a big believer.
well, it's just brilliant. But I mean, what makes me hopeful is the fact we're experimenting with things like that, which says the base, every human being, their base needs are met. And then we don't need to worry about our societies falling apart in a world where I don't want to live in a world where the people who have not have nothing and all of a sudden are a threat to me living my life as a have. I want to live in a world where the have-nots are basically looked after so that we all as a society can live together in that. So yeah, so that's I'm really hopeful about that. And by the way, it's a very little point, but I used to work in transportation. I am so delighted that there is now a mayor in New York City who is saying make all of the buses free because it is a simple policy change. And by the way, for you and me, when's the last time you took a bus in New York City or in LA for that
Last
matter?
time I took a bus was in New York, and that was a while back, and I was surprised I was even on the bus.
There we are. Because I mean, like the last time I took a bus in LA, I think it was 21 years old. And I
Oh, it's only a few years ago, though, so that's not
There
that
we are, exactly. But I
bad.
mean, but it's little things like that, which for us don't make a massive difference. But for the people who have to take the bus every day to go to everywhere they want, it's remarkable. So I see little experiments like that and go, wow, if we can sort of continue in this line, then we will survive the social challenges. There'll be massive social challenges of AI.
Yeah, the longer conversation, but I'll just put one quick comment there. I think business leaders have a choice to either keep people on. I think the business leaders can keep people on with base salaries to do stuff in the community. They can upskill
Mhm.
certain people too, but do that. And or they'll say, and we stop making solutions when we start talking about categories and titles and all that. We should forget what they're called.
Mhm.
And or the alternative then would have to be that they'd have to pay more unemployment, more healthcare was going to go up, all sorts of things that they're going to have to pay for. And
Yeah.
so what's the choice is smarter to be the business leaders, to keep those people on salary, have them do stuff in the communities that teacher aid, plant gardens in every school around the country, walk a little old lady across the street, take care of the Grand Canyon, whatever it might be, and that would create a no survival mode for people, which, as you know, I don't care what family you're from. If you have no money and your family needs food, you'll steal it. You just
Yeah.
will. So
Yeah.
I'm with you on that. I think we're probably heading for that because I think it's probably the only solution, and it's a matter of business leaders taking the lead to do that. But it'll be good for their branding. So thanks for sharing that, and I'm grateful that I have a new friend. That's my number one grateful thing here. So that's always cool, and that you are a leader who cares, and that's what I'm hopeful for at the same point too. And so great to have met you. Great to see what you're doing and how you're doing it. Don't let anybody take away your idealism and all that. It's great stuff. And thanks for participating on the series.
My pleasure. Thanks for the invitation.